So, picking up where I left off, God will put you into a situation where he's qualifying you for what he's called you for. But before he does that, he will pull you into a place of recalibration where there has to be a death of that side of your life that wasn't in ordinance with what it was that he needed for you to walk in. So with that being said, you might end up in a season of poverty. That's your stripping season. And in some cases, and my pastor talked about this recently, where she was talking about the fact that the stripping season that you go through is not even the fact that you're in a Job stripping season. It's a scenario that he's just allotted you to be in a season where you may not have, where he is preparing you before he pours upon you. I remember one season there, I was in New York, and man, the Lord set me up that I was about to receive something. And I thought, okay, I'm about 2 weeks away from being able to receive this, boom, boom, boom. A week before it happened, they stopped receiving the thing that I needed in the place, and I had to make a phone call, and then I had to reroute. And it took another 6 weeks for what I thought was going to come to me. And God cultivated me in that 6-week time period. I'm like, God, I thought I was going to get it. And then I had to reroute it. But I did end up getting it at a different point in time. You get what you need when you need it. And sometimes he allots that period of time to test you. Whether it's you, and in some cases, it's your spouse. Your spouses have had strong men in their life. And the Lord gave me this interesting confirmation recently about my spouse, where he was showing me that my spouse had to literally demolish his bad habits, which were associated to the strong man that was previously in his life. There are some people that have been attached to them that were curses or working word curses against them. A good movie for this, I don't know. I don't know whether I just watched this movie, because I watched it twice, but I don't think I did a word on it. I think I was thinking about doing a word on it, but I didn't do a word on it. Bad Boys 3? The one with Will Smith and the one they brought the son back? That one? That generational bloodline curse in that movie? Bruh. That woman was working all kinds of hoodoo, witchcraft. Bruh. That's what your spouse has been dealing with. Some of them been dealing with them counterfeits doing that stuff. How many times I gotta say it? And in some cases, these individuals didn't want them to have nothing, because they knew that if they had, that they were going to bring that stuff back to you. And they were like, we got to keep them at a level and bay that we can still control them. That's why your prayers were important, because you had to pray to unlock some of the stuff that was surrounding them financially. Disassembling some things that were altars that were built. Some stuff they had to disassemble. And I remember I was listening to Pastor the other day, and he was talking about the fact of the matter that some people have to come into agreement to disassociate with those things. And they have to choose to say that they're going to release and relinquish those things. You can pray all day for an individual, but until they make that choice to remove and tear down that altar, Because in some cases, God will allow them in a previous season to build that altar. He will. But when it's time, He's going to take that altar down. And I'm being reminded of the story of Gideon when he was in the wheat press, when he had to take down his father's altars. So there are certain things that were allowed, and they had to learn through processes what God's favor looked like in the differentiation to the world's favor. I'm cooking something, that's why you hear that. Let's see. You're at a boiling point. And for some of them, they've hit a boiling point. Let your surroundings prophesy. They've hit a boiling point in their situation that they got to deal with that thing, or it's going to overflow or overload. And not in a good way. Because the enemy's got a assignment. I'm being reminded when Elijah took off running when Jezebel was trying to take him out. That was the boiling point. He had to make a quick decision, but he made a temporary decision. He made a permanent decision in a temporary situation, is what he did, because he didn't have to beg God to take him up, but he ended up choosing to beg God to take him up, and God was like, I didn't send that assignment. What is wrong with you? He was tired. That's why you got to pray for your spouses. Some of them, the enemy was trying to trick them because of their exhaustion. Some of you won't be shocked. When your spouse comes to you, he might have the ability to speak coherently, but when y'all get alone, when he gets you alone, you're going to be surprised how tired he is. You'll be like, why are you tired? Because God has had them on a hamster wheel saying, bro, I need you to deal with these things, and I'm going to keep making you tired, and I'm going to keep making you tired, and I'm going to keep making you tired, because you don't have to deal with this before I let you rest. Xerxes could not sleep for 3 days until he did what God told him to do. So God had to direct them into a reset. And in some cases, that was the preparation that they needed to prepare them in order to step into the marriage that was ordained for the two of you to step into. But he had to prepare them, because in some cases, some of you, your spouses ain't met you yet. And God's saying, hey, sir, I done gave you all the information you needed to know about this woman. I need you to do a little bit of research here. There's look up what a betrothal. An actual betrothal in the Bible actually means that you're not going to meet that person until the day that y'all supposed to come together to go get married. Some of these men was like, I don't get to interview. I don't get to talk. We don't get to. God's like, you're going to get to talk, but you're going to have to take her to the altar. It's like, you don't get a couple of weeks to, we don't take her to the altar. And in some cases, hear me what I'm saying. He had to take you to the altar of God to prepare him to be prepared for you. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, yeah. And these were things that were needed and necessary in order to give him the crushing, the pressure, and the loosing that was needed and necessary in order to prepare him for what he had to go through and let go of when he was in his previous season. And that was a demolishing and destroying of his previous altars. as he was brought into a season where he had to be separated from certain things, situations, circumstances, scenarios, in order to prepare him to step into what it is that he was called to. So on one side, maybe your spouse operated in a commercial position. Maybe he worked in a corporate context or business structure that had a very visible perspective, and God pulled them. But in that was built on corporate, white collar, corporate understandings. But God put them into that position, and they were street smart. Go back to the review I did of Lady and the Tramp. And he had a corporate placement. He knew how to operate with his street smarts, which gave him a different perspective of how to operate in that position. But God had him operating from his street smarts, so he never really lost himself. I'm reminded of Damon Jean, where he talked about the fact that you never really don't lose that tenacity to keep using that street smart, that organic ability to operate from the grunt part. Because when you operate from that element, that God will work with you as he gives you the responsibility. But that man never really changed his flow, right? So that when God took the corporation out from around him and said, now I want you to build, you were there, I had you placed in that position, but now I'm going to have you build from the ground on a different foundation, independently of that, where we're going to operate on a level that's like that organic, bootstrapped business aspect. But you got that skill set that you learn in corporate. But because I never let you fully give into the corporate foundation of operating in that capacity, stay in your flow. And they were called to stay in their flow. And keeping that mindset, though they got stripped of all of that. It's kind of like when Esther went through that 5-year period, that she learned everything about how to operate in the kingship, and she had the concubines, and she got used to that, and God was like, hey, Mordecai said, I need you for such a time as this. I'm gonna need you to get rid of that and come here and do what we do. God kept them on a level of certain ways that they operated, so it wasn't as drastic, but all they did see the stripping of the persons and the situations, because some people were only around them for the convenience of the fact that they were their convenience friend. They didn't want to hang out with them past that point. Once they left that position and posture, it was like, wait, what? You trying to talk to me now? You ain't over here no more, sir. But God had pulled them down in order to loose them into the drive that will give them the ability to go into the direction of the offer and the alignment in which he had for them, leading them into direction that was actually going to be easier for them to build in, because he was driving them, but they were kind of in a Hosea husband scenario. Go back and look at my Hosea husband. It was a 3-part word I did. And with that, the enemy was trying to draw them into a trap. Because it's like, how you going to leave us over here to go over there? What you mean? You just going to go, you serious? Like, you seriously going to go over there and leave all of the beauties of Egypt to go out in the wilderness? What do you mean? Moses. And for some of you, your spouse is the Moses in this situation. because he's called to be pulled away from that situation. Because he had to realize that he needed to move towards God's destiny for him. So, yeah. So, when it comes down to it, you got to be in the right heart posture. In that right heart posture, that your spouse had to, on one hand, because he was so used to that corporate or whatever type of lifestyle, I'm just using corporate as an example, but that's the breaking down of all of those generational curses. And because wherever he was, they had to break down those areas, right? Some people had white collar jobs. Some people have, like, even as we're watching society, I see YouTube videos all the time where they're talking about mass layoffs from these corporate positions. Some of your spouses were in those positions, and these things were being broken down. And God's saying, I need you to build from the ground up a new foundation. But on the flip side, this is where the counterfeits were coming in saying, hold on. Where you think you're going? So they were called in as according to the scripture. Quickly, I'm going to say this, Numbers 22 through 24. Where you had Balaam and Balak, they were plotting and scheming behind closed doors. They're like, yo, I see bro moving a little bit different. I'm gonna need